welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr., your go-to wellness coaches of www.stressfreenow.info. Our featured guest today is Angela Carr Patterson, speaking on healing the invisible wounding you feel when you're a fatherless daughter. Angela Carr Patterson is the CEO and president of Oasis Promotions, LLC, a personal and professional development company dedicated to building new, inspired leaders for transformation and change in the workplace, the community, and the world. A successful entrepreneur for over 30 years, she has built two incredibly lucrative companies from scratch. Angela has helped thousands of individuals to achieve personal power and success for their lives. Author of 4 books, founder of the Fatherless Daughter Network, and the Vow to Love global movement, she's a trusted authority when it comes to helping women and girls to awaken the truth of who they are and to actualize the power of self-love to create infinite success in their lives. She is the creator of the groundbreaking work, The Journey to Being process, a program to help fatherless women and girls move beyond their daddy wounds onto a path of love, acceptance, and forgiveness. As a speaker, author, radio TV host, global life strategist, and the founder of the Fatherless Daughters Network, Angela is committed to her entrepreneurial calling of teaching others to awaken to their truth and live love as a lifestyle. Having hosted large conferences and small workshops, Angela now works with a select number of private clients and community and corporate partners. Through her work, she offers private strategy sessions and corporate consulting training programs designed to help individuals and organizations move from a place of mediocrity to unleashing their greatest potential to achieve peak performance and success. Angela is one of the most sought-after trainers and strategists in the world. Creator and executive producer of the Making of a Fatherless Daughter documentary film, Angela shows up each day as her true, authentic self. She proclaims your pain will never heal until you heal your misplaced sense of identity. When you tap into your truth and open your heart, amazing new possibilities will begin to unfold for you. Angela, those are such lovely words. Thank you for that. Audience, welcome. Angela, welcome. We're happy to have you on our show.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yes, Angela, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today and for being our featured guest. And welcome, audience. Angela, what led you to the work that you're currently doing?
Oh, wow. I think this work has always been in me. I think even as a young child, I can remember my mother had me in everything, dance, music, all of the arts and modeling. And I remember at 9 years old being on the back patio teaching little girls how to model, and even in second grade when we would go to the library, the kids were checking out books, fiction books, and I was checking out books. There was a set of books that said how to. They were always how-to books, self-help books, and I was checking out self-help books even in second and third grade. So I've always had a passion to help people, to serve, and to see people, help people to do things better. And I think the work found me. I think we all are born with a purpose. And when purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable, meaning that when we are not actually living what we were born to do, then we actually become abusive in our lives, and we allow that to happen on many levels. And one is betraying ourselves and not being totally fulfilled in life, because I don't believe that we can truly have fulfillment until we do that which we're born to do. So we all have something that's in our belly. I cannot speak to the vision that's in your belly, but I can help to call it forth. And I think we do that for each other.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Angela, the fatherless daughters that you talk about, could you explain that term and what that definition is?
Yes. And when people hear the word fatherless, they're a little taken back by it, because in actuality there really is no such thing as a fatherless daughter because we all have a biological father. But when the term is used, it means that the father figure is just not present in the daughter's life, and he may be absent, unavailable, or unattached, or he may have been deceased or may have just ran away, or maybe he's physically present but not attentive and caring with her. And so that creates within that female some missing elements that are essential to her growth and her evolution as a woman. And so we coin that as a fatherless daughter because she's less her father in her life.
Angela, have you found a difference in how a daughter may be missing her father, the effect? I mean, whether a father was lost through death or divorce or separation, or just never having been present. Is there a difference in the effect on a young girl's or life?
Yeah, there's studies that show the absence, with the father not being there, because we get our paternal meaning from our father, meaning we get our identity from our dad, and so we all know that your pain in life can never heal until you heal that misplaced sense of identity. And therefore, when your father is absent or unavailable, then that becomes a core issue for a female, which is her misplaced sense of identity and an intense desire to be loved and validated. And so because of our identity coming through our paternal relationships, and this fails to happen, then that female begins to search. She spends her entire life trying to find herself and search for love through paths and relationships and behaviors that do not necessarily serve her. And you have feelings of rejection, of feeling unloved, feeling unlovable, and fatherless daughters tend to view themselves inaccurately, and we know our behavior will always line up with how we view ourselves. And so we have this old limiting self-image that says we're not loved and we're not lovable, and feelings of rejection and no sense of identity, which puts us on this tailspin of things that happen in our lives, and these patterns that show up in our lives. But one of the things that I like to tell women is that you're not your patterns. Patterns can be changed. You're not a pattern. Those are just the things that are showing up in your life that didn't originate from who you really are. So there's healing that can take place. But this one missing element in a girl's life can really have many negative consequences on her, especially as she enters into her teen years and into adulthood. And the studies there are many alarming studies out there that females who grew up fatherless are 73 times more likely to be fatally abused, and on the average have a 44% higher mortality rate, 73% lower standard of living. 71% of all teen pregnancies are fatherless daughters. The stats are just alarming, but again, we're not a study, we're not a stat. So even though those things didn't happen to me, I had many of the symptoms, feelings of rejection and abandonment, overdriven by success. Some women have trust and commitment issues, challenged with shame, sex and intimacy, low self-esteem, difficulty sustaining healthy relationships, and issues around money, because how we do love is how we do money. The same emotional triggers that impact our relationship with love and with men also impact our relationship with money, because both of those things are tied to your sense of self-worth and value. So it can complicate a lot of things in your life. That's why you can find a woman that can make six figures and then at the end of the year still broke because of the issues that she's dealing with.
Yes, very true. Thank you so much. Those are really very sobering statistics indeed. Now, Angela, you also have a very large following on social media, and you interact with quite a few of your followers through Facebook. Could you tell us a little bit about how you connect on social media and how you work with your audience there?
Well, I think just being authentic. I tend to try to post on my social media things that are going to encourage, uplift, and inspire. I have a sense of humor. People who know me know that I love to laugh. I think you have to have a hearty laugh at least 15 minutes every day. Studies show that when you laugh hearty, at least 15 minutes, laughing for 15 minutes benefits the human body the same as sleeping for 2 hours. So I come from a lot of laughter in my family, so I usually post things that are funny. I pose a lot of questions to make people think, or I post some of my quotes just to kind of stir your soul. And so that has been, I guess, addictive to people because they respond. And I don't have a special formula. I just decided that I'm going to be me on Facebook and Twitter and the other social media outlets. And if you see something of value, then you respond, and if you don't, then you don't. And so that has worked for me, just being authentic. When I wake up in the morning, what do I want to share today? Or what's going on? Is my granddaughter doing something silly that I want to post? Because I give you a peek into my life and into who I am as a woman, not just as an entrepreneur or a strategist or a coach or a speaker or an author, but to me, the woman, Angela, you get a good up close and personal look into who I really am and how I live my life. And my children are out there, and so they're posting on three of my children are out there, and they post on my page, and those things are. You get to see me up close and personal, my personal friends, my brothers, my brother, my niece. So you get to see who we really are. And I think people like that. They like to see the real you. Because this is what you get when you get me. I can't pretend and handle that mask. I've lived a mask for years in the past, and once I pulled it off, I realized, listen, she's good enough. She really is.
I have to say, when I look at your page, one of the things that I notice immediately is that it's inviting. It gives me a sense of an open door. Come on in. Good. That's what I want. Yeah, come on. Yeah, I think that's definitely there, and I love what you said about the mask, because I think Bob and I have found, and this is what we long for and look for in the world, that there are many people that wear a mask and that they're afraid to be their authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, I've been listening in, and so like some guys do at the swimming pool, I wanted to do my cannonball splash. The thing about a cannonball splash is that it doesn't matter if you do it running off the side of the pool or you do it from the diving board. The effect is the same. That the people sitting there sunning, they get wet when they don't want to be wet. I want to come in here because there's several things that you have said that have touched me very deeply. And first of all, I want to thank you, and I want to acknowledge your voice is very relaxing. And I'm looking at the energy here, how this is like a centered conversation. And so I want to thank you for that. And I just make you aware that I've noticed that, listening in. I said, I feel very calm just listening to Angela and Christine speak. And so I'm hoping that our audience will have the same effect. So here's my cannonball splash is like a little sprinkle, like the sprinkler cap when you have on the fire hydrant. So it's meant to be very enjoyable and come at the right time. So the first thing that you said that touched me is when I looked at your book and I saw you on Amazon, And thinking about your term, fatherless daughters, I was startled by the complexity and the sophistication of your definition, that what you're really talking about is emotional unavailability, or being emotionally unavailable. And so when I started thinking about that, I said, oh, that could apply across the board. A person could be in a dating relationship or a marriage relationship, or any kind of relationship where one party is emotionally unavailable, where they want something, or, as you're saying, that women have this hole, and then the guy is trying to do something, but he can't fill that hole because he can't be her father. And so I was wondering about the reaction and response that I know we touched on this briefly in a previous conversation, but I was wondering if you could just talk about the response that you've gotten from men to your definition, because your definition is a distinction with a difference, because you are not just saying that, these are women that didn't have a father in the home. You're actually talking about women that may have had a father in the home, but the father was, for whatever reason, worked 2 jobs or 3 jobs, or just had the personality where he didn't interact with her daughter in a nurturing fashion. So could you just speak to that?
Yes, I think the success that I've had with the fathers is because my approach is non-judgmental and non-condescending, because I present my message that way, because I want to be aware, and I want them to be aware that nothing is as it appears to be. And so I cannot begin to blame and point the finger unless I know your story. And for many fathers, I don't believe that any man wakes up in the morning and says, I hate my daughter. I don't want anything to do with her. There are many layers of elements that get you to that point. And until we understand the rhythm of a man and how he's wired, we would never understand his actions. And I've learned also that oftentimes what a man feels is not necessarily what his actions carry out. And oftentimes what his actions carry out is not often what he feels. And I know that's complicated, but, you guys are complicated. So, and until we understand your rhythm and understand that is the truth about most men, that what they feel is not necessarily what they act out, and they've got to learn how to align those two things. And until they do, as women, we must understand their rhythm. And I also know that men are wired to win, that they want to win in every case. They want to win, and when they're not winning with their daughter, or maybe they're not winning with the daughter's mother, then they tend to retreat. And when we look at that and see that as abandonment, they see it as just retreating. And so at the table, there has to be room for everyone in the conversation if we're going to eradicate or even decrease the number of women or girls who are fatherless. And it doesn't matter if you're 15 or if you're 50. Every girl wants to become daddy's little girl. And so if we're going to have this conversation with the men, then you have to approach it that way, that I'm here, I want to hear your story. I don't just want to blame you, I want to hear your story, but I also want to share with you what your absence has done to your daughter. And when I present it in such a non-judgmental way, then one thing about non-judgmental is it brings about awareness. And when you bring about awareness, it gives you the ability to make new choices. And that's all I want them to do, is to make another choice. And that choice, for me, is to re-engage, re-enter, and reconcile with your daughter.
Angela, thank you. That is so beautiful how you laid that out. 2 things that occurred to me while you were speaking was something that you had said earlier. Actually, 2 things you said earlier. One, you used the phrase a self-image tailspin, and then you spoke about laughter. And so my first question is that there is a damage that has been done, or a missing element, or pain. There's a pain body when a woman is, let's say now an adult. And so I'm thinking in terms of how this inner wounding would affect her interactions with men in general, whether it's in the workplace or within the family or just in the community, because sometimes you see people and it looks like they have a chip on their shoulder. And I go, well, I didn't do anything to you, and so the thing is, so my question there is, how can we as men, or I should say, what would be an approach that you could use in terms of being more successful every day interacting with women who have this aspect where their father was unavailable or actually missing, and they have this rage inside or anger, which could be projected or transferred. I know I've experienced that in my life, where sometimes I've walked into a room and it felt like, I was being attacked, and I just walked into the room, and so that in the past had puzzled me. And then the other question is about the laughter. That it's not so much a question, but I'm saying I agree with you. There's lots of research that demonstrates that humor and laughter in particular have beneficial effects. In fact, I actually have written a couple of articles about the power of laughter, how it spikes nitric oxide in your body and helps release endogenous morphine. And so I want to thank you for that. But could you just talk briefly, what would be effective ways that men could use, because there's so many people that have the type of wounding that you're talking about, that it seems that it would be very helpful that in terms of getting to like a healing and reducing stress, and the conflict that comes up sometimes between men and women, so that it's not a structural thing.
I think for a man, especially if it's his beloved, if it's his wife, girlfriend, or a significant other, one of the primary things that he has to do is to create a context in which she can feel safe in that relationship. And because that is an area that has been for a fatherless daughter, is that will he stay? Will he stay, and will he love me for a long time? And will he create provisions for me? And will I be able to, have a place to lay my head and food to eat? Because safety and security is important to us, and that's with any woman. Any woman, she needs to know that I'm going to be loved, and I'm going to be loved for a long time, and she needs to know that my needs are going to be met, and they're going to remain met. And so he has to create a context in which she can feel safe in that relationship. And when she doesn't, then she will begin to feel threatened and rejected. And that is when the anger comes, because it's not so much the anger that's directed at him, but it's the repressed anger that's directed at Daddy, and he just hit a trigger. And when that trigger came, because a lot of girls remember when Daddy left, then the economics in the house went down, or maybe they saw their mom having to work 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and it was as a result of Daddy not being there, or maybe Daddy not sending the money. So again, that threatens her provision, her security. And then with Daddy leaving, or Daddy just not being there, then she's feeling unloved and rejected. So that threatens her protection and his presence. And so he has to create a context in which she can feel safe. And he's got to be able to communicate that to her in her language. Men tend to communicate through their actions. I'm going to work every day, and I'm coming home every day to you. In his mind, I'm demonstrating to you that I'm here, that I'm showing up. But no. You've got to communicate in her language, meaning you've got to say it, because we're moved by what we hear. So you have to say it to us. And I love you. I'm here for you. I got you, babe. Those kind of things. I'll fix it for you. I'm going to protect you. I got you. You don't have to worry about this. Those are the kind of things we need to hear, not just look at what you're doing. And as a woman matures, she understands that she can see it through his actions, and he's not necessarily going to communicate it, but you have to communicate that in order to help her to feel safe. So I would say, create a context in which she can feel safe in that relationship. That's the main thing.
Angela, wow, that is so deep. You took me to the deep end of the pool, 20,000 leagues under the sea. You not only answered that question, but you did it in such a gentle and loving way that where I kept saying, well, a man wants the same thing.
Yeah, he does.
Who doesn't want to feel safe and protected? Nobody wants to walk outside their door and get eaten by a lion, So what came across to me, and I believe will come across to our audience, is that, all of the things that Angela said were very reasonable. Very, very. Is there anything unreasonable that she said? I think that the key thing is, speaking as a man here, and I'm going to speak directly to, and I'm just talking about me, okay? I'm not speaking for all men, but one of the things that I had found frustrating sometimes talking to women is, as you said, you mentioned this issue of language. And this is not just, and I've had this issue with other men too, where, if you don't speak the same language, that the same word doesn't have the same meaning. In fact, we were at a dinner the other day, and we were talking about this issue where, a guy mentioned a word, and I said, in your culture, that word has one meaning. In American culture, that has the opposite meaning. And the word in this case was wicked. And in Jamaican culture, wicked has a different meaning than it has in American culture. And so there's the cultural context, and then there's the male-female context, okay? And also there's the regional context. Even, I found, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing too, just when you travel around the United States, that something in California is very different than something in South Carolina, for example. Very, very, very different. And so it's very helpful what you said. So could you repeat that, Angela? Because I think you said that when a man can speak the language, so part of the frustration from a man's perspective, and again, I'm talking from my perspective, me, Bob, I'm not saying this is all men, is that sometimes I have not understood, well, here's what I mean. Process that I found that many women are into process, and where as a guy I'll say, like say a woman will say, I hate my job, this is awful, and then I say, well, quit or find a new job. That's not what they want to hear, right? And so that I had to learn that in that particular case they may be venting, right, which is process. Whereas a guy, because, as it was explained to me, he was saying, well, guys try to fix stuff. But, like, they go and they fix a car, you go outside and there's a hole, so you patch it. And so, but in a relationship, it doesn't work like that. So part of the issue is that, where would a guy have received that kind of training and learned those things? So I'm going to flip it where I'm going to say what, from my perspective, and again, I'm just talking from my perspective, what I have found helpful is when a woman, and I have said the same thing to Christine, because when we've had an issue where I don't understand, I asked, almost like in the Lucille Ball show where Ricky said, explain it to me, Lucy. And so it's helpful sometimes that I think, people can make assumptions on either side that the other person understands me. I remember in a previous relationship, a person said, well, you're my soulmate, so you're supposed to know what I'm thinking. How could I know what you're thinking? And then, and in hindsight, we have opposite paradigms. So what I'm asking you is this: how could we increase the flow of two-way communication? Because I think the thing that I'm coming that I hear, that I love about what you're saying, Angela, it makes me aware that there's the need for a two-way street of communication where the guy is honest and the woman is honest. And because both persons are concerned about being hurt, because they've probably been in previous relationships where they've been hurt.
Yeah. Well, we tend to approach relationships with guarded because, again, we're fearful of being hurt. And when we really adapt to the truth that pain is a part of the human experience and that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And so when you get to the point that you realize that pain is inevitable, I will get hurt in this relationship. I'll get hurt over and over again many times. I just have to determine what is a deal breaker for me. But in relationships, you're going to get hurt, period. My husband and I wake up every day. I know he may do something that may disappoint me, but is that hurt or is that disappointment? You got to know the difference. Disappointment is just an unmet expectation. Maybe I should not have expected him to do that when I didn't communicate that to him. So I think the first thing is getting clear about the model of your relationship. What is that model? When I coach couples, we talk about that model. What does it look like? Because for women tend to have a model in their idea what they want their relationship to look like. Then they find the man and forget to tell him about the model and want to insert him in that model.
We have seen that many times.
Right, and they want to insert him in that model, and he don't know the rules for the model because he didn't know you already had an idea what that relationship needed to look like, and he's just being himself in it, and you're correcting and changing and shifting him, and he's like, wow, what did I do now? What did I do? What did I get wrong now? And it's because he didn't meet the criteria what she has in that model. She just grabbed a man and inserted him and forgot to tell him, oh, I forgot to tell you, I have a model of what I want this relationship to look like. And so what I think couples have to do is figure out what that model looks like for them. Not what my mom and dad had, not what my girlfriend and her husband has, but what is the model for us? And so that's what Bill and I, we know what our model of our relationship we want it to look like. And every day when you wake up in the morning, then you rehash that model, okay? And these are the things that are going to get me closer to achieving that model. And at night before you go to bed, did I do the things that would get me closer to achieving that model that we set for ourselves? And if you didn't, then you self-correct and start over again tomorrow. And maybe you may have to ask for forgiveness or atone for something with him or her. But again, that keeps you can't hit a target that you can't see. And so therefore you know what the model is, and then the two of you are responsible for making that model work. And I think once you get clear about that, one of the things that Bill and I use are questions. I am a fatherless daughter. He grew up with a two-parent home, and he had a very engaged father in his home. There were 6 boys and 2 girls in their home. So their father was very engaged with his son, with them. I didn't have a father. So one of the things that we use are questions. Tony Robbins says that the quality of your life is in relationship to the questions that you ask yourself. So one of the questions he'll ask me, like he may say something and I may snap back, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute. Now, how did you get that out of what I just asked you? And what he's saying is, I want you to process what I just asked you, because what you processed is not what I said. And because he knows that I may filter that through a fatherless daughter pattern. Because remember, fatherless daughters, oftentimes we see through tainted lenses. Our lenses have been smeared with that stuff coming back from our daddy wound. And so I'll rehash that question back and say, oh, boy, that's just my daddy wound that's a trigger trying to peep up. You're right. That's not what you said. So he feeds it back to me when he knows it's necessary. If I'm really busy and I've got a lot going on, TV show, all kind of things going on at the same time, I'm really busy, so I may not filter things as easy. So he knows, and I told him, I said, if I come at you and say something that you know is just off, come back with the question. Don't follow me up. Don't you snap back, because understand what's happening. I'm a little stressed. I got a lot going on, so you just bring me back with the question. That'll bring me back. So again, we figured out what makes the model work for us, and that's what couples have to do instead of assuming.
Well, Angela, that is so beautiful. Let me say that again. What you said is so beautiful and clear. And not that that's easy to do in the moment, especially when the blood flow is reduced to your left hemisphere because you're ticked off, but you get actually given the answer. And I want to really thank you because you've shown a flashlight in the darkness, because there unfortunately has been too much contention between men and women, and I actually feel a whole series coming on here, because what you just shared is something that, Christine and I talk about all the time. In fact, I can just pull out a sheet here where I have for Christine, where we're going on to 10 years of being married shortly, and I joke with her from time to time. I said, look, it's taken 10 years for me to get it. or I go, I'm finally coming around, with the smelling salts that, things, the way that you put it about this motto, I I never asked her, did she have a motto in her head? And I never really thought about, do I have a motto in my head? And so I want to thank you for that, and I know our audience has found what you have said to be beautiful, and you have so many pieces here that I would like to just say I feel a continuing dialogue coming on, because I believe that there are answers here, and some of the things that you just mentioned, Christine and I, over time, have implemented in our relationship, and it's an ongoing thing. Like you said, it's a work in progress. That's how I feel. So I want to thank you for today's interview.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. Okay.
Yes, Angela, we really appreciate all that you've shared with us, and we know that our audience will find great value from it, too. Would you tell our audience the best way that they can get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Of course. You can log on to my website at AngelaCarrPatterson.com, and that's Carr with 2 R's. AngelaCarrPatterson.com. If you want to learn more about the Fatherless Daughters movement, just log on to fatherlessdaughters.net. Fatherlessdaughters.net.
Okay, thank you so much. So again, audience, you can get in touch with Angela at AngelaCarrPatterson.com, and that's AngelaCarrPatterson.com, AngelaCarrPatterson.com, and also at FatherlessDaughters.net.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so Angela, I'd like to ask you, what final thoughts or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's broadcast?
Wow, okay. That it is important that you awaken unto the truth of who you really are. You will never feel you will never have a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction and real joy and happiness in life until you align with the truth of who you are. And as you begin to awaken unto that truth, you have access to your power, which is actualized in self-love. And when you can do that, awaken into your truth and actualize your power of self-love, then you can actualize and access the dreams of your life. And I truly believe that there's nothing more beautiful than a person who is awakened unto their truth. And there's nothing more powerful than a person who has actualized that truth in their lives. And so there's so many signals out there, so many people speaking into your life, but there's a truth that resides in the deepest part of you. And when you can gain access and truly immerse deep enough into there for that real person to emerge, then you will ascend and rise to your highest level in life. And there's nothing, and I mean nothing, that you can dream and desire that will not gain access and become a reality to you. And you would then have what I call the magical life. And one thing about magic, you can't turn it off.
Amazing.
With just live authentically, and laugh every single day, and embrace love as a lifestyle, because success in life really does begin with love.
Well, thank you so much, Angela, and that's a wonderful and beautiful way to sign off. And audience, I want to thank you for listening, and thank Angela again for being our featured guest today, wherever you are, in whatever time zone you are in. We welcome and look forward to your comments about our show. Please contact us through our website with your feedback and suggestions. Remember, listeners, if you'd like to experience the same benefits our coaching clients get with us and learn how to get control of your schedule or easy ways to dissolve your chronic pain, stress, or anxiety, feel free to call us at 954-900-2179. Mention that you heard our Stress Free Now podcast show, and your first session is absolutely free. Call today to schedule your appointment. For Christine Wright, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr. of www.stressfreenow.info. Until next time, be safe and be well.